Commander Lisa Warren stood at the large window overlooking the shimmering city of Thalasia Prime. The alien architecture rose in graceful spirals that caught the light of the twin suns, creating rainbow patterns across the polished surfaces. She adjusted her uniform and took a deep breath. After 3 years as Earth's representative to the Galactic Alliance, today might finally be the day humanity was granted full membership. "Nervous?" asked a soft voice behind her. Lisa turned to see Zora, the Thalasian ambassador, approaching. The tall, blue-skinned alien moved with the natural grace of her species, her 4 eyes blinking in a pattern that Lisa had learned meant friendly concern. "A little," Lisa admitted. "Earth has waited a long time for this." Zora placed a 6-fingered hand on Lisa's shoulder. "The Alliance Council is impressed with your people's progress. I believe today will bring good news." Lisa nodded and followed Zora toward the grand meeting hall. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations. Some were humanoid, others defied easy description. Floating gas creatures contained in special suits, insectoid beings that communicated through color changes, and many more unusual forms. As they took their seats, Alliance President Malk called the session to order. The squat, gray-skinned diplomat raised his hands for silence. "Today we discuss humanity's petition for full Alliance membership," Malk began. "Commander Warren will present Earth's final—" A loud alarm cut through his words. Red lights flashed across the chamber as screens activated around the walls. "We are detecting multiple unidentified craft entering the system," announced a Thalasian officer, her voice steady despite the obvious concern. "They do not respond to communications and are approaching at attack speed." Lisa felt her military training kick in. "How many ships?" The officer looked at her display with all 4 eyes, widened in shock. "Over 300 vessels, size and configuration unknown." The chamber erupted in panic. Most Alliance species had enjoyed centuries of peace. Their military forces existed mainly for ceremony and minor security operations. All diplomatic vessels should return to their planets immediately, President Malk ordered above the noise. "Commander Warren, as Earth is still technically an observer, you are not bound by Alliance protocols. You may—" The building shook violently. The sound of distant explosions reached them even through the thick walls of the chamber. "They're firing on the city," someone shouted. Zora grabbed Lisa's arm. "We must get to the emergency bunker, now." Lisa followed as Zora led a group of diplomats through a hidden door behind the council seats. They rushed down a series of corridors and ramps descending deep beneath the city surface. The emergency bunker was large, designed to protect government officials during natural disasters. Lisa doubted it was built with military attacks in mind. Inside the bunker, wall-sized screens showed the unfolding disaster. The attacking ships were angular and black, with glowing red lines across their hulls. They fired relentlessly on the beautiful Thalasian cities and the few defense ships that rose to meet them. "The Thalasian defense fleet is responding," said one of the officers manning the bunker controls. Lisa watched as the sleek Thalasian vessels, considered among the most advanced in the Alliance, moved to engage the invaders. Her heart sank as ship after ship was destroyed without seeming to damage the enemy vessels at all. "Who are they?" asked President Malk, his gray skin now pale with fear. No one had an answer. Hours passed in tense silence as they watched the systematic destruction of Thalasia Prime's major cities. The enemy ships took turns attacking, showing no signs of damage or fatigue. "We've lost contact with the orbital stations," reported a communications officer. "What about the evacuation ships?" Zora asked, her voice trembling. "Some got away. Many didn't." Lisa tried reaching Earth on her secure communicator but received only static. She attempted to contact other Alliance worlds with the same result. They must be blocking long-range communications, she concluded. As night fell, the attacks became less frequent. The screens showed fires burning across the once beautiful landscape. Lisa studied the enemy movements, noting patterns in their attack strategy. They weren't just destroying. They were methodically taking control of specific locations. "Look there." She pointed at one screen showing a large black ship landing near a city's ruins. They're deploying ground forces. Everyone watched as ramps extended from the ship and tall armored figures emerged. They moved with frightening precision, securing the area before setting up large devices. "What are those machines?" President Malk asked. A science officer studied the readings. "They appear to be atmospheric processors of some kind. They're releasing compounds into the air." "Poison?" someone gasped. The officer checked her instruments. "Not exactly. They're changing the air composition, decreasing oxygen, increasing sulfur compounds." Zora's four eyes widened in horror, "making it unbreathable for us but perhaps suitable for them. They're terraforming the planet," Lisa realized. "This isn't just an attack, it's an invasion and colonization." Morning brought no relief. The enemy ships continued their methodical destruction of Thalasian infrastructure. The bunker's air filtration system protected them from the changing atmosphere outside, but Lisa knew it wouldn't last forever. During a rare, quiet moment, one of the communication officers called everyone's attention. "I'm receiving scattered reports from other systems. This isn't isolated to Thalasia Prime. Multiple Alliance worlds are under attack." The news hit like a physical blow. The Galactic Alliance encompassed over 30 major worlds and hundreds of colonies across this arm of the galaxy. A coordinated attack on all of them would require military resources beyond imagination. "We need to find out who they are," Lisa said. "Knowledge is our only hope right now." Using the bunker's systems, they managed to capture and enhance images of one of the enemy soldiers. The being inside the armor was tall and muscular, with gray-green skin, 4 arms, and a face dominated by what looked like breathing apparatus. "Checking. Against Alliance records," said the science officer. After a moment, she looked up in surprise. "There's a match. They're called the Krazul, a species from beyond the galactic rim. There was contact with them nearly 500 years ago, but it was limited and hostile. They disappeared and were believed to have gone extinct or retreated to another galaxy." "Well, they're definitely not extinct," Lisa said grimly. 3 days later, the situation had grown desperate. The bunker's power was failing, and their food supplies were dwindling. The atmospheric changes outside had accelerated, making the air toxic to Thalasians even for brief exposure. "The oxygen levels in the bunker are falling," the science officer reported. "The filtration system can't keep up with the changes outside." Lisa looked around at the frightened faces of the diplomats and officials. Species that had known peace for centuries were now facing extinction. The great Galactic Alliance, with all its advanced technology and cultural achievements, had fallen in less than a week to an enemy they didn't understand. Zora sat down heavily beside Lisa. "We were fools," she said quietly. "We forgot that the universe is not always kind. We let our defenses weaken over generations of peace." "There must be something we can do," Lisa insisted, though she felt the same despair creeping in. "Your Earth is young in galactic terms," Zora replied. "You still remember conflict, but even your military would be no match for this. The Krazul ships destroyed our most advanced vessels in seconds." On the screens, they watched as more Krazul troops swept through the ruins of the capital city. It would only be a matter of time before they detected the bunker. "All hope is lost," Zora whispered, her voice breaking as she looked at the destruction of her world. "We delayed joining Earth to the Alliance because we thought you were too aggressive, too focused on military readiness. Now I see we needed more of that vigilance." Lisa put her arm around her friend's shoulders but remained silent. She kept trying her communicator, hoping to reach Earth, to warn them, but there was only static. Above them, through layers of rock and metal, the Krazul continued their relentless claim of a new world, while the last defenders of Thalasia Prime watched their oxygen meters slowly drop toward zero. 2 weeks had passed since the Krazul attack began. Lisa Warren no longer wore her crisp diplomatic uniform. Instead, she was dressed in a mix of Thalasian clothing and practical gear, stained with dirt and sweat. Her face was thinner, her eyes constantly alert for danger as she moved through the ancient tunnel system beneath what remained of Thalasia Prime's capital city. "This way," whispered Captain John Hayes, a human merchant marine who had been stranded on Thalasia when the attack began. He led their small group through a narrow passage, his hand never far from the makeshift weapon at his side. The diplomatic bunker had become a death trap when its air systems finally failed. Only quick thinking and luck had saved Lisa, Zora, and a handful of others. They had found an old maintenance shaft, just as Krazul ground forces began cutting through the bunker doors. Now they were part of a growing resistance network, moving between hidden chambers and ancient tunnels that predated modern Thalasian cities. Captain Hayes had gathered survivors, both aliens and the few humans who had been on planet, into organized cells. "Home sweet home," Hayes said as they entered a large cavern that served as their current base. Emergency lights cast long shadows across walls lined with salvaged equipment and supplies. About 30 survivors occupied the space, most of them Thalasians wearing breathing masks to filter the increasingly toxic air. Zora approached Lisa, her blue skin paler than it had been weeks ago. "Dr. Foster wants to see you," she said. "He's made a discovery." Dr. Alex Foster was a human xenobiologist who had been studying Thalasian marine life when the invasion struck. Now he applied his knowledge to understanding their enemy. Lisa followed Zora to a corner of the cavern where Foster had set up a makeshift lab. "Commander Warren," Foster greeted her, looking up from a crude microscope fashioned from salvaged parts. "Look at this." Lisa peered through the eyepiece at what appeared to be tissue samples. "What am I seeing?" "Krazul's cellular structure," Foster explained. "We recovered it from a dead soldier during yesterday's raid. Notice anything unusual about the molecular pattern?" Lisa shook her head. "Biology isn't my specialty." "The Krazul cells break down when exposed to a specific radiation frequency," Foster said, excitement making his voice rise. "And not just any frequency. It's in the same range that Earth communication systems use. The same range that most Alliance species abandoned centuries ago because they found more efficient methods." Lisa's mind raced with possibilities. "Are you saying the Krazul are vulnerable to our communication technology?" "Potentially, yes. Something about that frequency disrupts their cellular cohesion. It might explain why they avoided Earth space, despite conquering nearly every other Alliance world." For the first time in 2 weeks, Lisa felt a spark of hope. She was about to ask more questions when Lieutenant Kate Daniels called out from the communication station across the cavern. "I've got something." Daniels waved them over. The lieutenant had been a communications officer on a human trading vessel. She had spent days trying to decode Krazul transmissions using salvaged equipment. Lisa, Foster, and Zora hurried over as Daniels pointed to her screen. "I've been analyzing their communication patterns, and I've started to make sense of their language. They use a numerical base 6 system with pictographic elements." "Can you translate what they're saying?" Lisa asked. Daniels nodded. "Some of it. They're discussing invasion plans. Look at this." She pointed to a section of symbols. "This refers to planetary designations, and this," she highlighted another section. "This is definitely talking about Earth." Lisa felt her heart skip. "What are they saying about Earth?" Daniels frowned as she worked through the translation. "They categorize planets by threat levels and resource values. Earth is listed as negligible threat, standard processing. They've scheduled Earth for invasion 3 weeks from now." The news hit Lisa like a physical blow. While she had assumed Earth would eventually be targeted, hearing it confirmed made the threat painfully real. "We need to warn them," she said. "If Dr. Foster is right about the radiation frequency, Earth might have a chance to prepare defenses that work." "The Krazul have blocked all long-range communications," Hayes reminded her, having joined their group. "And they control orbit. We can't get a message out." Lisa paced the cavern floor, thinking. What about the old Thalasian communication array in the northern mountains? The one from before they joined the Alliance? It might use the older frequency that Foster mentioned. Zora's 4 eyes widened. The Heritage Array. It's been maintained as a historical site, but it hasn't been used in generations. It's possible the Krazul wouldn't recognize its significance. If it's still intact, Hayes added. It's worth trying, Lisa decided. We need a small team to reach the array. If we can send a warning to Earth about the Krazool weakness, it might give humanity a fighting chance. The next day, Lisa led a team of 6 through the tunnel network. Besides herself, the group included Hayes, Foster, Daniels, Zora, and another human resistance fighter. They carried what supplies they could and the precious data on Krazool biology and communications. The journey was treacherous. Several times they had to hide as Krazool patrols passed overhead. Once they were forced to detour through a partially flooded tunnel where something large and unseen swam in the murky water. After 18 hours of careful travel, they emerged from the tunnels into the foothills of the northern mountain range. The night sky above was filled with Krazool ships, their red lights moving in organized patterns as they continued to transform the planet. There, Zora pointed to a structure nestled against the mountainside about 2 miles away. The Heritage Array. They approached cautiously. The area seemed untouched by the invasion, likely deemed unimportant by the Krazool scouts. The array itself was an enormous dish built into the mountainside, pointing up at the stars. The control facility was a domed building at its base. Inside, they found ancient but well-preserved equipment. It's a museum now, Zora explained as they entered, but the systems were kept functional for educational purposes. Daniels immediately went to work on the control panels. "This is amazing," she said. "These systems are similar to early Earth communication technology. I can work with this." While Hayes and the other fighter kept watch outside, Daniels and Foster worked to bring the array online and calibrate it to reach Earth. Zora helped translate the Thalasian control interfaces, and Lisa prepared the message they would send. Hours passed. The first sun was beginning to rise when Daniels finally looked up from the controls. "I think we're ready. The array is powered up and aimed toward Earth's solar system. But there's a problem. Using this will draw a lot of power. The Krazool will detect it almost immediately." "How long will we have to transmit?" Lisa asked. "Maybe 5 minutes before they can pinpoint our location." Lisa nodded grimly. "Then we make those 5 minutes count." They sent everything. Foster's discovery about the radiation frequency, Daniels' decoded Krazool communications, tactical information about Krazool ships and weapons, and a desperate plea for help. Lisa recorded a personal message at the end, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is Commander Lisa Warren of Earth. The Galactic Alliance has fallen. The Krazool are coming for Earth next. They believe you're a negligible threat, but they don't know humanity like I do. We've found a weakness. Use it. And if you can, remember those of us fighting on Alliance worlds. We're still here. We still have hope." Just as she finished, alarms blared throughout the facility. "They've detected us," Hayes called from outside. "Multiple ships changing course, heading this way." "Message sent," Daniels confirmed. "Let's hope someone's listening." They gathered their equipment and ran for the tunnel entrance, but they'd only made it halfway when the first Krazool ship appeared overhead. Energy weapons scorched the ground around them as they sprinted for cover. Lisa felt a searing pain in her leg as a blast hit nearby, sending her tumbling down a rocky slope. Above her, the beautiful night sky filled with Krazool ships, their searchlights scanning the terrain. The Heritage Array exploded in a ball of flame behind them. As darkness closed in around her vision, Lisa looked up at the stars, wondering if their message had reached Earth in time. Whether humanity would fare better against these invaders than the Alliance had. Whether anyone would come looking for the survivors of Thalasia Prime. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was Zora and Hayes sliding down the slope toward her, determination on their faces as Krazool soldiers descended from their ships in pursuit. Admiral Frank Morris stood at the center of Earth Space Command headquarters, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. At 62 years old, he had spent his life defending Earth, first in ocean wars, then in space. As humanity reached for the stars, now he might be facing his final battle. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying across the busy command center. "Unidentified ships have entered the outer solar system," reported a young officer. 53 vessels moving in formation, They're not responding to hails. Morris nodded grimly. 3 days ago, they had received a broken static-filled message from Commander Lisa Warren on Thalasia Prime. Much of it was corrupted during transmission, but enough came through to understand the dire warning. Earth was next on the list for these invaders called the Krazul. What about the civilian evacuations? Morris asked. Underground shelters are at 80% capacity. The lunar bases are full. Mars colonies are accepting as many as they can. The Admiral turned to the central display showing Earth's defense fleet. 26 warships spread in a protective formation around the planet. Good ships with brave crews, but if the reports from Alliance worlds were accurate, they wouldn't last an hour against the Krazul fleet. Admiral, a communications officer called. The Defense Council is waiting for your recommendation. They need to know if we should attempt negotiation or prepare for full military response. Morris almost laughed. Negotiation. Some council members still didn't understand what they were facing. The fragments of Lisa's message had been clear. The Krazul didn't negotiate. They conquered. They transformed. They erased. Tell them I'll join shortly, he said, then turned to his second-in-command. Is Chief Engineer Maxwell still in her lab? Yes, sir. She hasn't left in 36 hours. Morris nodded and left the command center, taking a rapid elevator down to the secure research level. He found Olivia Maxwell surrounded by holographic diagrams and half-assembled components, her gray-streaked black hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept in days. Tell me some good news, Olivia, Morris said as he entered. Maxwell looked up and managed a tired smile. I think it might work. The frequency Commander Warren mentioned in her transmission, we've adapted it into both our shield harmonics and weapon systems. Based on the limited data we have on Krazul biology, it should disrupt their ship systems and possibly even their personal armor. How sure are you? Maybe 70%? We'd need a field test to be certain. Morris nodded. What about the Defiant? Is she ready? Maxwell's expression grew serious. As ready as she'll ever be without proper trial runs. We've installed the modified systems, but this is cutting-edge technology, Frank. The Alliance would consider some of these weapons too aggressive even for military use. The Alliance is falling world by world because they weren't aggressive enough, Morris replied. How soon can she launch? 24 hours minimum. Morris checked the time. You have 12. The Krazul will reach Earth orbit in 18. As a Mbo, Maxwell returned to work. Morris made his way to the Defense Council chamber. The council members, politicians, military leaders, and civilian advisors fell silent as he entered. Admiral Morris, began the council chair. We understand. The Krazul fleet will arrive soon. What is your assessment? Morris activated the room's display system, showing images from Lisa Warren's transmission. Ruined Thalasian cities, Krazul ships, and atmospheric processors changing alien worlds. We can't negotiate with them. We can't surrender. Based on Commander Warren's report, the Krazul are systemically conquering and terraforming Alliance worlds to suit their physiology. Earth is simply next on their list. But our standard fleet, began one council member, will be destroyed. Morris interrupted. Alliance worlds with far more advanced technology fell within days. Then what do you suggest? Asked the chair, her voice tight with fear. That we simply accept our fate? Morris straightened his shoulders. No. I suggest we activate Project Defiant. A murmur ran through the council. Project Defiant had been Morris's pet project for 5 years. A next-generation warship incorporating technologies the Galactic Alliance had deemed too militaristic for membership consideration. The project had been officially suspended during membership negotiations, but Morris and a small team had continued development in secret. The Defiant is untested, argued the military representative, and one ship against 53, the Bai. Defiant has been modified to target the Krazul biological weakness that Commander Warren discovered, Morris explained, and I'm not proposing we use it to defend Earth directly. He activated a tactical display showing a bold and risky plan, the Krazul believe we're a negligible threat. They don't expect resistance. While they focus on Earth, we launch the Defiant with a skeleton crew directly to Thalasia Prime, their current command center. We hit them where they feel secure, rescue any survivors, including our people, and gather critical intelligence on their operations. "It's suicide," said one council member. "It's our best chance," Morris countered. "Earth's fleet will engage the Krazel here to buy time, while the Defiant strikes at their heart. Even if we fall, we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't go quietly." After hours of heated debate, the council narrowly approved the plan. Morris immediately began assembling a volunteer crew for the Defiant mission. Colonel Sam Ortega, head of the Space Marines, stepped forward first. "My team is ready, Admiral. Just point us at the enemy." Lieutenant Ryan Butler, the fleet's most innovative weapons officer, volunteered next. "I've been studying the Krazel attack patterns from the fragmented data. I can adapt our targeting systems to exploit their weaknesses." By morning, Morris had assembled a crew of 87 volunteers, barely a third of the Defiant's optimal staffing, but each person was among the best in their field. From her engineering lab, Chief Engineer Maxwell coordinated the final preparations for launch. "We're bypassing safety protocols to get her ready, Admiral. The radiation weapons are installed but untested. The shield modifications should work in theory, but we've never had a chance to verify against actual Krazel technology. We'll test them in battle," Morris said grimly. As the Krazel fleet approached Earth, civilian broadcasts were filled with panic despite government attempts to maintain calm. News had leaked about the unstoppable alien armada, and fears of an alliance-style conquest spread rapidly. Morris stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiant as the massive ship was moved from its hidden underground hangar to the launch bay. Through the viewports, he could see Earth's regular fleet moving into defensive positions, preparing to buy the Defiant the time it needed to escape. "Final checks complete," reported Lieutenant Butler from the weapons station. "All systems online. Marines, secured for launch," Colonel Ortega confirmed from the troop deck below. "Engine room ready," Maxwell's voice came through the comm system. "The experimental drive is stable, but I recommend prayer as an additional safety measure." Morris allowed himself a small smile at her gallows humor. He opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Admiral Morris. The Defiant is ready for launch." "Understood, Admiral," came the response. "Krazel fleet has entered inner solar system and is accelerating. Earth Defense Fleet is moving to intercept. You have a clear launch window for the next 6 minutes." Morris looked around at his bridge crew, young faces mixed with veterans all prepared to risk everything on this desperate mission. "Navigation, set course for the Vega system, Thalasia Prime," he ordered. "Maximum speed, once we clear Earth's gravity well." "Course laid in, sir." Morris settled into the command chair. "Lieutenant Butler, are the new weapons ready?" "Yes, sir. Radiation frequency weapons charged and locked. Standard weapons online as backup." "Colonel Ortega, are your Marines prepared?" "For ground operations? We're ready to deploy the moment we reach Thalasia Prime, sir." Morris nodded and took a deep breath. "All hands, prepare for launch. Our mission is clear. Strike the enemy where they don't expect us, rescue our people if possible, and show these Krazel that humanity is far from a negligible threat." He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "This is Admiral Morris to all crew. Earth faces its darkest hour. While our main fleet engages the enemy here, we take the fight to them. We may not return from this mission, but what we do today will be remembered as long as humans draw breath." The enormous engines of the Defiant hummed to life, the deck vibrating beneath their feet as power flowed through systems that had never been fully tested in combat. "Launch," Morris commanded. The UNS Defiant rose from Earth's surface, accelerating toward the stars as behind them. The first shots were fired between Earth's defense fleet and the approaching Krazel armada. Lisa Warren woke to the sound of dripping water. Her body ached, and her injured leg was wrapped in makeshift bandages. She was in another underground chamber, smaller than their previous hideout. Zora sat nearby, her blue skin looking almost gray in the dim light. "You're awake," Zora said, relief in her voice. "We were worried." Lisa tried to sit up. "How long was I out?" Almost 2 days. The Krazul blast caught you with its edge. Captain Hayes carried you here. Lisa looked around the small space. Only 5 of their original group remained. The others? Zora's 4 eyes blinked sadly. Lieutenant, Daniels and 2 others were captured. Dr. Foster didn't make it. The news hit Lisa hard. They had risked everything to send that message, and now they were fewer, weaker, with nowhere left to hide. The Krazul had been methodically sweeping the tunnel system since discovering their existence. Did the message reach Earth? She asked. We don't know, Hayes said, entering from a side passage. But we have to assume it did. It's the only hope left. A distant rumbling sound made them all freeze. The Krazul had been using seismic charges to collapse tunnel sections, trying to flush out or trap the remaining resistance fighters. They're getting closer, Hayes warned. We need to move again soon. Lisa nodded, though she wasn't sure how. Much longer they could keep running. Food was scarce, medical supplies nearly gone, and the air even in the tunnels was becoming harder to breathe as the Krazul's atmospheric processors continued their work on the surface. Help me up, she said. If these were to be her final days, she would face them on her feet. Once standing, she tested her injured leg. It hurt, but she could walk. What's our plan? Hayes grimaced. Survival for now. The last resistance cell we had contact with was captured yesterday. As far as we know, we're all that's left. A louder boom shook dust from the ceiling. This one was closer. That wasn't a seismic charge, Hayes said, his expression changing. That sounded like another explosion, even louder, rattled the chamber. It was followed by the unmistakable sound of weapons fire, but not the high-pitched whine of Krazul energy weapons. This was different. Lisa's heart raced. Those are human weapons. Hayes grabbed a makeshift periscope they had fashioned from salvaged parts and extended it through a narrow ventilation shaft that reached the surface. His face showed shock as he looked through it. I don't believe it, he whispered, then stepped back. Look. Lisa took the periscope. Through its limited view, she could see a section of Thalasia Prime's once beautiful capital, now in ruins. Krazul ships were moving rapidly through the sky, but they weren't attacking. They were retreating, and firing on something she couldn't see. Then it came into view, an enormous warship unlike any she had seen before. Its dark hull was marked with Earth's insignia, and it was firing constantly, each blast finding a Krazul target with impossible precision. That's a human ship, she said in awe. But how? Earth doesn't have anything that big or advanced. Apparently they do now, Hayes said, a smile breaking across his face for the first time in weeks. The unknown Earth ship continued its assault, firing weapons that seemed to make the Krazul vessels simply fall apart rather than explode. It moved with surprising agility for its size, evading return fire while maintaining its relentless attack. We need to signal them, Lisa decided. Let them know there are survivors. The surface is still crawling with Krazul ground forces, Hayes cautioned. Then we'll need to be careful, Lisa replied. But this might be our only chance. They gathered what supplies they could carry and made their way through the tunnel system, following the sounds of battle overhead. Lisa's legs slowed her down, but Zora helped support her weight. They reached a section where part of the ceiling had collapsed, creating a dangerous but passable route to the surface. The sounds of fighting were much louder here. I'll go first, Hayes volunteered, climbing carefully through the rubble. Lisa and Zora followed, with the remaining 2 resistance fighters bringing up the rear. They emerged into the ruins of what had once been a grand governmental plaza, now unrecognizable under Krazul reconstruction efforts. The massive Earth ship hovered about half a mile away, exchanging fire with the remaining Krazul vessels. Smaller craft had deployed from its hull, transport shuttles and fighter support. Over there, Lisa pointed to where a group of humans in combat armor were engaged with Krazul ground forces. Those are Earth Marines. Hayes pulled out an emergency flare, their last one, and fired it into the air. The bright red light arced high above their position. The human Marines noticed the flare immediately. A squad broke off and moved toward them, providing covering fire as Krazel soldiers turned their attention to the survivors. "Commander Warren," a Marine called as they approached. "Colonel Ortega, Earth Space Marines. Admiral Morris sent us to find you." Lisa felt a wave of emotion wash over her. "My message got through?" "It did," Ortega confirmed as his squad formed a protective perimeter around the survivors, "and it gave us exactly what we needed." A Krazel energy blast struck nearby, sending debris flying. "Explanations later," Ortega decided. "We need to get you to the Defiant now." The Marines escorted them toward a waiting shuttle, fighting off Krazel attackers as they went. Lisa looked up at the enormous Earthship, the Defiant, with wonder. It was more advanced than anything she had seen before, certainly beyond what Earth had possessed when she left for her diplomatic mission. Once aboard the shuttle, they were quickly transported to the Warship. The interior was a hive of activity, crew members working with focused intensity despite being clearly understaffed. The Marines led them directly to the bridge. Admiral Frank Morris turned as they entered. His stern face softened slightly at the sight of Lisa and the other survivors. "Commander Warren," he greeted her. "Your warning saved Earth. We received enough of your message to prepare this welcome for the Krazel." Lisa nodded toward the view screens, showing the battle. "Your ship is incredible. I had no idea Earth had this technology. We didn't tell the Alliance everything during membership negotiations," Morris admitted. "Project Defiant was developed in secret. Your information about the Krazel weakness to certain radiation frequencies was the key. We modified our weapons, systems accordingly." A young officer approached. "Admiral, the primary atmospheric processors have been targeted and destroyed. Krazel ships are retreating to high orbit. Lieutenant Butler, maintain pursuit," Morris ordered. "Don't let them. Regroup." "What about Earth?" Lisa asked urgently. "The Krazel fleet was headed there. Our defense fleet engaged them," Morris said, his expression grim. "They fought bravely but were outmatched. We lost 17 ships before we arrived here. But the Krazel weren't expecting us to have your intelligence. They certainly weren't expecting us to bypass Earth entirely and strike at their command center here." "A bold strategy," Lisa acknowledged. "The only one that made sense," Morris replied. "Hit them where they felt secure, using the weakness they didn't know we had discovered." Chief Engineer Maxwell entered the bridge, her uniform stained with coolant fluid. "Admiral, the radiation weapons are holding steady, but the drive system is showing strain. We can't maintain this level of output much longer." "How much time do we have?" "Maybe 30 minutes at combat power," Morris nodded. "Then we make those 30 minutes count, target their command ship." The Defiant turned its attention to the largest Krazel vessel. The specialized weapons fired, causing visible disruption along the enemy ship's hull. "Their shields are failing," Lieutenant Butler reported. "Their systems appear to be destabilizing from within." On the view screen, they watched as sections of the Krazel command ship began to break apart. Other Krazel vessels were either retreating or suffering similar effects as the Defiant's weapons found their targets. "We're receiving reports from the surface," another officer announced. "Krazel ground forces are in disarray. Many appear to be physically affected by our radiation weapons." Lisa turned to find Zora staring at the displays in amazement. "I never thought I would see this day," the Thalasian said quietly. "When the Krazel came, all hope was lost. Until humanity's warship appeared." Admiral Morris smiled slightly. "This is just the beginning. We've received word that resistance cells are reforming on other Alliance worlds. The knowledge of the Krazel weakness is spreading. Earth is sending reinforcements, more ships with the modified weapons." For the first time in weeks, Lisa felt something beyond desperation and survival. She felt hope, not just for herself or for Earth, but for all the worlds the Krazel had conquered. As the Defiant continued its systematic dismantling of the Krazel fleet, Lisa stood tall despite her injuries. Humanity had been considered too aggressive, too focused on defense by the peaceful Alliance. But today, those very qualities had saved them all. The galaxy was about to learn a valuable lesson. Humans fight hardest, not for glory or conquest, but when protecting others. And when humanity decided to fight, even the most fearsome enemy would learn to fear the sight of an Earth warship appearing on their horizon.